You've all heard about networking, career fairs, job interviews, and in the workplace. Now it's time to upgrade your networking skills. 5 tips, let's go. Hey, this is Whitney with So You're an Engineer, the channel designed for the young engineer looking to personally grow and develop. So let's dive on in. Number 1, do some research on current events. I personally prefer using Bloomberg as my source of current events and news in the world. It gives a really great understanding for business, money, job, technology, growth, all of the things. Do your research and figure out what forum you like to hear your news from. Tip number 2, use the person's name in the first conversation you have with them. So if you're in the conversation with Tom, say, "Hey Tom, that sounds like a great idea." At that point, not only are you reinforcing that you have that personal connection with him to use his name, it also helps you remember his name later down the road. So then when you meet him in 2 weeks or so, you can say, "Hey, I remember Tom who had the great idea." Also, we're humans. Our name is the number one thing that we have always used in our life. So people naturally like to hear their name used. It usually fills people up with that trusting, feel-good sense so that they can trust you with the next conversation and have that personal connection. Tip number 3, allow others to talk about themselves. How often have you been in a conversation? Topics look something like, where do you live? What degree? What school did you go to? What job did you get? What projects are you working on? What's the weather like? It's all very mundane. So this tip of asking people to talk about themselves refers to talking about the projects, their curiosities, why they chose certain things and how they really got there. People love to talk about themselves. When you give them that opportunity to elaborate on the path that they have taken, it usually lights them up and allows them to take a trip down memory lane. So as you're asking people about themselves, tip number 4 is be sure to listen to them. Open up your ears, slow down, relax, be a human being, and listen to what is being said. I can't emphasize this enough. Don't worry about having to think of the perfect response as you're in conversation with them. One thing I caught myself doing is trying to curate a perfect response. Well, the more that you actually relax, is able to see the person that is ahead of you that you are talking to as a normal person, you might actually be able to come up with better responses than if you were busy turning your mind, trying to think of what the best response would be next. Actually, if you slow down a little bit, relax and listen to them, it'll allow more natural curiosities to come out and more natural pauses that should come out within human interactions. So in turn, you actually get to spend more time with a person and have a deeper, more quality relationship with them. If they're talking about a current project, actually ask them what was the greatest challenge that you had? What are you actually intrigued to ask them more about? And that is how you can develop a deeper relationship with anyone. The last tip I've got for you, take a look at the current relationships you have in your life today. How do you communicate with others? What are the conversations typically like? And what type of conversations fill you up the most? So if you're constantly talking about the weather, what you did on the weekend, or minor things, what are the things that make you feel good? Is it talking more about the current events and hypothetical situations and how to solve problems? If that's the case, then try to bring more of those conversations into your life so that the more of those deep, meaningful conversations you are able to have, the more comfortable you will be communicating with those strangers about those things that are going on in the world. Okay, to wrap it all up, if you're trying to enhance your networking abilities, remember we have our 5 steps. First is do your research on current events. Second is repeat the person's name back to them in conversation. Third is ask the person about themselves. 4th, listen. And 5, take a look at the current interactions you have in your world today. Hey, this is Whitney signing out with So You're an Engineer. Subscribe, drop me a comment, shoot me a message if you'd like to connect. Until next episode.